Caged ruins. How Gaza is being engineered into a containment zone. As lethal lines are drawn and illusions of reconstruction are marketed to the world, Gaza is being remade not into a future society, but into a permanent spectacle of control, while 2 million people are trapped in a wasteland of rubble, fear, and deprivation. Behind the global diplomacy and humanitarian rhetoric lies a far sterner strategy. Israel's campaign is no longer just military, it is spatial, structural, and psychological. Across Gaza, we now observe the creation of a yellow line dividing territories of reconstruction and proxy rule from areas of perpetual destruction and neglect. A limited showcase of reconstruction in tightly controlled zones under Israeli or proxy oversight, used to manufacture a narrative of progress and de-radicalization. The deliberate maintenance of massive zones where aid is blocked, infrastructure smashed, and mobility restricted, producing caged populations, trapped between bombardment and starvation. The wasteland by design. A wide range of humanitarian organizations have documented the collapse of civilian infrastructure under the Israeli military campaign. According to Amnesty International, Israel must be investigated for war crimes of wanton destruction in Gaza, citing almost wholesale demolition of residential buildings in towns like Gaza. The UN's Independent Commission reports that Israeli forces have implemented a concerted policy to destroy the healthcare system of Gaza. Actions violate international humanitarian law. Meanwhile, a survey of 35 humanitarian agencies found that 100% of them said Israel's procedures for aid entry were either ineffective, had systematically impeded the humanitarian response, or were insufficient to meet the huge needs. What emerges is not a failing of policy, but rather the appearance of systematized destruction. When the vast majority of aid agencies report being delayed or blocked, when entire hospital networks are rendered inoperable, when the very geography of displacement is manipulated, this is not collateral damage, it is a strategy of containment. Reconstruction, only for the chosen few. The visuals of a so-called model town, as you described, a proxied zone of normality, with a school, a mosque, media tours, and propaganda videos, fit into a pattern. Carve out a small controlled area, allow minimal functioning, normal life, and present it as proof of generosity and restoration. Meanwhile, the majority of the territory remains a bomb-scavenged ghetto. In that sense, the reconstruction serves a dual purpose. It becomes a PR operation. Look, we are rebuilding, we are generous, Hamas is the reason this is not whole, and it facilitates the establishment of a new power architecture, in which collaborators, proxy gangs, and occupation-aligned entities administer the reconstruction zone, while the rest is left beyond hope. The logic of the wall, the cage, the divide. The Berlin Wall-like deadly line metaphor is apartment. By physically and administratively dividing Gaza, Israel is able to claim progress in one zone while absolving itself of responsibility for the rest, control entry, exit, and movement, effectively caging an entire population under blockade, bombardment, and displacement. Use disarmament as a perpetual pretext, since any collection of arms anywhere can be framed as a continuing threat. The entire zone can remain under military rule and humanitarian suspension. The U.S., as Israel's primary ally and enabler, plays a key role through funding, arms supply, diplomatic cover, and silence. By failing to hold Israel accountable for structural policies of destruction and containment, the U.S. becomes complicit in turning Gaza into not a liberated territory but a laboratory of occupation and caste-like control. The illusion of choice. Israel offers Gaza's residents two options: leave entirely via displacement or forced migration, or remain in a zone of rubble, perpetual threat, and minimal aid. There is no genuine third option of self-determination, dignity, or reconstruction at scale. Even if the leadership of Hamas were removed or disarmed tomorrow, and that scenario remains highly uncertain, the structural mechanisms are already in place. The controlled zone remains small, framed as the only legitimate one. The rest remains war zone, sanctions land, caged and neglected. Disarmament becomes the excuse for permanent exile, deprivation, and occupation. Why this matters? If Gaza becomes a permanent wasteland under occupation, a zone where reconstruction is selectively allowed, movement is barred, and the population lives in trenches of despair, then what is called peace or settlement becomes an entire population's incarceration. Gaza stops being an occupied territory awaiting liberation. It becomes a ghost zone of forgotten lives. Such a strategy has global relevance. It shows how military victory is being shifted into urban planning, zoning policy, infrastructure denial, and psychological siege. It turns an occupied people into an experiment of automation, surveillance, and containment, all under the guise of security. Call for accountability. The world cannot accept a future in which one part of Gaza is reconstructed for propaganda, while the rest is left uninhabitable and bombed at will. Governments that fund and arm Israel, particularly the U.S., must demand full humanitarian access, immediate halt to destruction of civilian infrastructure, independent investigations of alleged war crimes, and a genuine reconstruction plan that is not filtered through proxy warlords or gangs. Absent this, Gaza will not be rebuilt. It will be resigned to a future as a cage. And the genocide that so many fear may not be defined simply by bombs, but by the slow starvation and blockade, the engineered ruin, the quiet denial of a people's future.